Good morning, everyone. This is Chris Korupati from Cambrian Lab. With me is my colleague, Hiren Shah. In today's session, we are going to be covering some innovative approaches for digital workflow for sales operations excellence. Before we get started in terms of logistics with respect to Zoom, the session is going to be split into three parts. In the first part, we'll cover a little bit about some of the sales operations workflows, quote to cash process, some of the complexities in process orchestration that we've observed in several industries, what the challenges and pain points are in terms of improving the process. We will then spend a significant amount of time, most of the session really, on how we try to approach using a workflow engine that we develop. We think it's pretty effective and innovative. Following that, we'll open up the session for Q&A and discuss any questions and that you have. Since you are not able to articulate or speak your questions into this session, one way you can pose your question throughout the webinar, of course, as and when you get the question, is to type it into the Q&A tab in the Zoom webinar Zoom client that you're using. Okay, so we will monitor the Q&A tab, and we've decided to answer all the questions towards the end so that it's more convenient. And if there are any questions that we are not able to answer in time, we will respond via email, or where needed, we can set up a one-on-one session. Okay. With that, a little bit about Cambrian Lab. We are a company out of San Francisco Bay Area. We work a lot with many of the high-tech automotive and semiconductor consumer goods companies, primarily on supply chain and new product development. We are also, comprised of people from enterprise technology and supply chain technology. So we have quite a bit of expertise in making things work effectively for supply chain and new product development and sales operations workflows. Okay. In panelists, I am Chris Korupati. I have over 20 years of experience in new product introduction and supply chain, and spent quite a bit of time at some of the high-tech and automotive and other companies. My colleague Hiren, also similar. We went to the same college, as you can see. He spent a significant amount of time both in software and high-tech and operations industries. Okay. So if you think of sales operations, we're going to just directly jump into the overall scope of sales operations. Some of this may be spilling over into what you would consider to be classical sales roles, but there is nothing wrong in looking at sales operations as encompassing everything from where there is interest from a customer or a prospect to how do you close the sale, help close the sale, and fulfill the demand and get paid, right? That whole, we could call it order to cash, but we actually even go a little bit further ahead of an order to look at, where does the demand come from? How do you effectively work collaboratively or cross-functionally to make sure that, any interest that the customer has can result in a potential sale or a sale. And then you fulfill, of course, right? For many companies, I know there is a term right now, is software is eating the world, but there is a trend towards more and more what you would call performance-oriented payments in terms of billing, etc. So what that means is, your job is not done until the customer is actually able to use the service or the product that you're providing. And depending upon the industry, that can be many, many things, right? It's not just, you cannot ship and start billing. Sometimes you have to integrate, you have to implement certain things. In that process, you may actually work with your supply chain partners, distributors, or contract manufacturers, service providers, systems integrators, etc. And only your billing or billing engine starts only once the customer starts to take advantage of your service, use your service or product, right? So that's a lot of, the quote to cash process can be very extended. And if you're not doing a very, very good job of orchestrating this, the revenue cycles can, grow pretty long. And, there's always the risk of what are we actually fulfilling the demand per the terms that we agreed to? So those are some of the issues that you have, and depending upon the industry, you may have to do many, many things, and multiple partners may be involved in the overall delivery of a service or a product, and many parties come together to make it happen. Right. So there are still, this is something that we have observed in many, many companies, is that there are soft and hard boundaries still. For example, sales teams may not be that keen. You don't even know about what is going on in supply chain. So this is the classical role of sales operations team, taking down these barriers and making everyone look, really see what is going on, as well as orchestrate the process so that everything, handoffs are happening well and efficiently and effectively. Okay, so one of the things that we have observed working with many of our customers is that while you have a process, that you can, any type of quote to cash process, you can accomplish it many ways, right? You can create quotes in one system. Often, you have, say, CRM systems and customer supported systems, customer facing systems, where a lot of the inquiries and quotes may come. However, to effectively respond to what the customer is asking or the prospect wants from you, you have a lot of underlying teams, or back end, if you want to call it, supporting teams in terms of operations, supply chain, manufacturing, finance, that are working together to support the need that the customer is showing, right? So what we have seen is, there are still quite a bit of what do you call translation, lost in translation type of issues, or hard barriers to the front end customer facing systems working effectively with the fulfillment systems. You can call it an ERP, right? There's master data issues, there's process handoffs. What happens when a quote, where does it become a sales order? What are the subcontract POs? Who is our supply chain partners? And today, we work a lot in high tech. If there is one thing that is very, very evident right now, is uncertainty of delivery and delivery dates. You could be promising everything to your customers. Hey, we can do it in 2 months, but there's no guarantee unless your supply chain is able to provide that commitment, or that you can actually do it. So there's a lot of collaboration that suddenly needs to happen before you even respond effectively to the customer, right? With their interest, the prospect, with can you do what they're asking you to do or not? So those are the types of things that are today just not possible. We're going to look at how to look at that. We will use our workflow engine. This is something that we've developed. A lot of customers use it for supply chain oriented workflows. It has a number of very key capabilities that make it very, very effective and useful, and pretty easy and simple and fast to use. We'll look at that demo. We'll skip past that. And our goal with ZFlow is to really make the whole organization and the supply chain work as one, right? Which means everything, all the barriers are taken down and information is flowing freely and handoffs are happening very, very nicely. Okay. So that's our goal, so that you have the advantage of compressing your quote to cash cycles, actually have visibility through the supply chain of what the requirement is and whether you can do it, fulfill or not. And once it is committed, fulfilling it in a to meet the customer needs as well as what you agree to provide. Okay, so we are going to use this demo scenario. What we will do start is with what typically happens in the world of sales, and you could even call a little bit ahead of sales or business development, customer interest monitoring, etc. Right? So we'll start with what you'd consider to be a prospect asking for a quote to fulfill a data center infrastructure requirement. And when that happens, we will, because there is some uncertainty into whether the supplier can fulfill at a particular date, we need to go into the supply chain and obtain estimated delivery date information, because that's what the customer is interested in understanding, right? Whether before they agree to give you business, right? So once that happens, we'll show how the connected workflows work. And once the customer agrees to the code, prospect rather agrees to the code, we also have to onboard that customer, right? Because a prospect is still a prospect unless they become a customer. And onboarding is quite an intricate workflow. From our experience, it's one of the most critical workflows to make a prospect into a customer. And it's actually the first time the customer actually experiences you as a service provider or a product provision supplier, right? And you want the process to be seamless and effective. Now, once the quote is agreed upon, you also want to keep track of, especially if subcontractors are involved, how is the fulfillment process coming along, so that everybody is on the same page. There is no confusion. Even customers should know how the fulfillment happens, what the status of is. So, we do, as a customer of, for example, Amazon now, we know everything that is going on with our order. So the expectation is the same everywhere now, right? So that's why this is the scenario that we're going. If we get some time, we will also cover some of the workflows that we've developed around front end, around RFIs and RFPs. One of the thing that we are noticing is that it's a big gap in terms of workflows needed from non-standard type of sales inquiries and customer interest. So if we get time, we'll look into that. With that, what we'll do is give the start to Hiren, so he can start it in a customer-facing application like Salesforce, and how you can start collaborative processes directly from Salesforce using ZFlow. Okay, Hiren?
Yes, let me share my screen. Thank you, Chris. I will take off from where Chris has set it up. So this is what Chris just showed us as to the flow, and what I'm going to do. First of all, Chris, are you able to see my screen?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to start right here. I'm going to start in a CRM system, Salesforce being one of the more popular ones. We, of course, work with other CRM systems as well. I'm going to start with the prospect, which is Facebook in this case. I'm going to create an opportunity for it and a code, and then we will see how the supporting collaboration happens via ZFlow. So I'm going to take you through these activities in Salesforce. I'm going to initiate the collaboration in ZFlow and then hand it over back to Chris. Then I'll come back and demonstrate the customer onboarding as well. So let me go ahead and flip over to my Salesforce CRM screen, where I have a prospect, in this case, Facebook. It is of type prospect. So I have not yet done business with this customer as yet. And eventually later on, once I do business or once they do accept the quote, we will look at new customer onboarding as well. But for right now, in the interest of time, I've already created an opportunity for this prospect, which is Facebook. And this is the name of the opportunity. And against that opportunity, I have also created a quote. Let's go take a look at the quote. This is the referencing opportunity. This is the account that it is on. And let's take a look at the lines that are added to this opportunity so that we can see what it is that we are trying to sell to this prospect. So the scenario is that we are trying to sell them a rack server for the new data center. These quotes do get complex. We have kept it simple in the interest of time and in the interest of communicating the main collaborative aspects of a solution. So the point is that we are selling them a rack server, which is for $10,000, and we are also selling them an annual maintenance service, which is for $1,200. So that's recurring, and that is one time. And in our execution system, this actually involves a lot more components, as we later on see. Our execution system in this case is SAP, which we'll take a look at. In order for us to really accurately quote this, we, as Chris mentioned, we do need to collaborate with a supply chain, which is outside our company. In order for me to do that and to be able to give a delivery date, I'm going to go ahead and collaborate with our vendor, JBill, and I'm going to click on supply chain collaboration for sales quote. As soon as I click on this, it transparently brings me over to ZFlow. It creates a collaborative process. It pulls in the information and the references to Salesforce. So this is the quote number that we came from, going back to Salesforce Q-0004. So, and it also sets up the process for you. So here are all the different steps that will happen in the process. Chris will take you through it. I'm just going to take you through a couple of steps. One of the first steps is that it gets all of the information from Salesforce, so there is no rekeying that is necessary. This is bidirectional. There is no middleware involved. It is all out of the box. As soon as I start this process, what this does is, and this is an optional message that I can provide to everybody who is involved in this collaboration or to only to the next person or conducts the next step. As you can see, the system in real time is communicating with Salesforce, pulling all of the real information in real time from Salesforce into this collaborative process. So it knows what is the customer that we are collaborating with. It has pulled in all of the product information that we would like to now communicate with our supplier so that they can give us the appropriate information. At this point in time, I will now hand it over back to Chris so that he can take us through this collaborative process. By the way, this can be not only for delivery days, it could be for service installations. There can be many, many different scenarios over here. So Chris, would you like to take it from here?
Yes. Okay. All right. And can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Hiren. So what Hiren had just showed you is he instantiated a workflow from Salesforce into ZFlow, which means the quote, which is traditionally resident in Salesforce. If you're using CPQ in Salesforce, that's what you will be using. However, we wanted to make it a little bit more collaborative because we need to go and collaborate with the supply chain and get some very critical information. So I have made a copy of that just for the purposes of continuing with the demo. And we have exactly the same information, the same line items. And if you look at the workflow, he's finished with the first two steps, and it actually came over to me as the sales manager review. So if you look at the workflow, we've designed it because it included certain supply chain element in terms of fulfillment, both from a assembly manufacturing as well as delivery to the customer, right? We want sales operations to look at it. Operations part of sales, that is, right? So, and in addition, you might actually even if you look at it, at this point in Salesforce, we have no way to tell Facebook, exactly what is the estimated delivery date, because we ourselves don't know. I mean, there are a couple of things you could do. One is pick up the phone and call the supplier, Jabil, or whoever the provisioning person customer is. So this is obviously a rack server that is going to be fulfilled by partner, which it can be filled. We'll show you how the master data, flows through different systems via ZFlow to make it all seamless. And we don't know the estimated delivery rate, so we need to go and get it from the partner. So sales managers, in the interest of time, I'm going to complete these steps here. We are good with what we are provisioning. Now we said, okay, we need to go get supplier and partner inquiry, right? So what we have done is actually went ahead and created a supply chain process, right? This is going to Jabil, who is the contract manufacturer. All of that is filled up. And in this process, in this workflow, we are actually going to invite a supplier representative. Okay, the supplier will respond, and we're going to review the respond and update the parent sales quote. So if you had noticed the parent sales quote, we didn't have any estimated delivery date. It's because the supplier is the one that has to give us that information, Jabil in this case. So with that, what I'll do is, I just noticed this annual maintenance service is not that important from a Jabil perspective. So I'm going to delete that line item. Okay. All we want is estimated delivery date for this rack server, because that's the only thing that they are providing. So you can control these types of changes as part of this workflow, right? So with that, what I'll do is start the setup. What I'm going to do is also add, so the current step is review the quote inquiry. I'm good with that. It says I invite a supplier representative. I'll show you a little bit later on how suppliers are core entities and parties as part of the workflow engine. So we treat suppliers and customers as if they can participate in any of the workflows easily, right? So in this case, I'm going to manually add the Jabil user as a supplier representative. So that's the role that he'll play, is that of supplier representative. And finish that step. So now the workflow has gone ahead and it is now in the supplier response stage. So as I had indicated, we consider suppliers, customers, or internal cross-functional teams as, they are all playing a role as part of these different workflows, right? So here to the left is the same application. I am logging in as Jabil. So let's go to I'm going to log in Jabil. No need to pass exactly this. There is now an activity for me. Most of the time people do get emails to go and look at what they should do. And there will be an email link that will include and put them exactly in the place where they need to go and do some activity, right? So if you notice, there was a lot of information here. For example, around the lines and the quotes. Here, everything is shut off. I mean, they can still view the prices, etc., where needed. The only thing that we've allowing the supplier partner to provide information is estimated delivery date. So Jabil is now coming and saying, we think we can do it by August 31st. Right? This is the information that we need to send to Facebook. right? So that the quote, they will then say, yeah, we can work with that and we'll give you the business if the product, everything is they're happy with it, right? So here, Jabil, as far as Jabil is concerned, they're done. Okay, this is my response. Submit it. It comes back. So if I now go to here, this is internal, right? I'm the company. I actually have the estimated delivery date information that Jabil just gave. Okay. So as far as Jabil is concerned, they are finished, right? We needed to get. So imagine we have certain customers where their quote involves, at least 6, 7 of these types of supply chain partners coming together and fulfilling the demand, right? So in these types of scenarios, this becomes extremely simple to go and engage, collaborate with your supply chain partners to get the information and never lose the context. We are still here in the Salesforce quote, right? These are all related workflows. So now let's go back to Salesforce quote. And there, if you notice, the estimated delivery date should have come, but let me pick where it is. Okay. So we're going to look at, so that's how, you're going to get the information, engage with the supply chain, and provide that information to the upstream processes. So we do have one other process where I can take you through to show you how, once the quote is approved, you have to go back to Facebook. They'll get the quote information with the correct estimated delivery dates, etc. And if they accept it, you need to actually go ahead and create them as a new customer. So with that, what I'll do is hand it over to Hiren so he can continue with the process and get them onboarded as a new customer. Hiren?
Thank you, Chris. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So the scenario is that now Jabil has provided us with an updated delivery date and some other servicing related, fulfillment related information. And the code has been accepted. We can go through the motions of additional collaboration, but Chris has given you an idea of how Jabil is able to log in, get a notification. They need nothing at that end. There is no partner portal. There is no integration necessary. It's seamless. They get a limited view of the process. They are able to provide and collaborate to the extent necessary. And here we are. And we are fast forwarding the process where Facebook has accepted the code. And now it is no longer a prospect. We are going to onboard Facebook in our SAP system. So our CRM system is Salesforce. Our execution system is SAP. And we are going to onboard. Now, the information that we have captured in Salesforce is basic. So we have information on Facebook. We have their website address, some information on revenue. We have some description. We have the address. But when we onboard a customer, there's a lot more information that we need in order to be able to do business with them. So for that process, we involve many, many people outside of our Salesforce ecosystem. For example, finance, for example, procurement, etc. So I will go ahead and click on new customer onboarding. It will again seamlessly open up a process in ZFlow. And now we are in a new customer onboarding process. It knows that that's what you're doing. So it has set up a workflow that will go through it. This can be customized. ZFlow comes with more than 100 plus templates. And Chris will take you through all of these. Let me do the first step where I can show you that it is able to go and maintain the link with our Salesforce system. So it knows that we are at Facebook. And when I start the process, it will go ahead and in real time fetch all of the data that we have currently in Salesforce. So we have the description, we have the address, and it has also gone ahead and defaulted some of the terms based on our SAP system. So we know that we are going to use these kind of payment terms, these Incoterms. This is a dunning procedure to make it easier for us to fill in all of the information necessary to onboard this customer. So now that we have set up this process, I will hand it over back to Chris to show you, where he will take you through this process, at the end of which we will actually have a customer created in the SAP system. Over to you, Chris.
Oh, thank you. All right. So what you've seen is Hiren starting the new customer onboarding process. I don't know how many of you have ERP systems like SAP or Dynamics or NetSuite. Often a prospect needs to go through what you would call a customer onboarding process before they become a real customer, right? And a real customer has a lot more aspects to it in terms of what is the different types of information that you need about the customer. If you call it know your customer, KYC type of information. So you need to be able to bill the customer, you need to be able to ship the customer, what types of pricing are you going to be using. So if you look at the language of CRM systems versus language of SAP systems and everything in between, you have like a fairly extensive workflow to onboard, just even internally, a new customer. Forget about actual onboarding from a product service delivery perspective. So this new customer, you can consider it to be this is a workflow that is designed to take a prospect and make them a real customer that you can actually do business with, bill, and deliver products and services to the customer, right? So this can be as simple as one step if you just have a B2C type of customer, or even simpler, people that come online and after a trial or something become real customers where they get paid by PO or credit cards, etc. Right? But this is a little bit more involved when you have B2B customers, right? Large customers that you try to do business with, even small and medium-time customers. So you can now ZFlow actually takes over. You have pretty limited information in SAP in CRM systems. You're not necessarily working to really have all of this information in your CRM, right? This is where your team takes over. The correct people can come provide that information. For example, customer service knows a lot about where the delivery dates are, what the phone numbers are, or the salesperson can actually give it. Is it a distributor? The types of industry codes that you want to use internally, cost centers they are assigned to, right? Price lists. These are all done by your customer service rep or your sales operations teams themselves, right? Now, once that is done, you can actually go ahead and run through, due diligence that your finance team may have to do it. And then based upon that, they will establish a credit limit for this customer. In the legal terms, I don't know how, depending upon the type of product service, you may have to actually negotiate all of the legal terms before you actually go ahead and create the new customer in SAP, right? So these are the workflow actually takes over and allows people to complete it, all of these texts, both information and analysis. So here I'm going to, you're acting for the performer. So the real performer is Hiren Shah. In the interest of time, I'm going to actually go ahead and do some of this, depending upon the type of information I can give it, or select what I can actually edit, as well as provide information. I will do it. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and create this information. Here we have actually a review step so that people can go pick and select what. So for example, here, this is not a distributor, this is Facebook, so it's a real customer. So here it's contact at facebook.com. We provide additional information. We can actually pick strategic customer, all of the different things that are expected so that you can actually do the business. All of this while we are actually keeping track of also the Salesforce prospect information, because later on we may have to go and provide update Salesforce with the correct customer information, though the sales team and the customer knows about it. Right. So with this change, I'm going to go ahead and save this, accept this information. The finance team will actually do some due diligence with the information that's provided. We also have connectivity to IBAN and banking systems to ensure that the information that they provide is valid. So the DNB checks, etc., can also be done. So let's go ahead and do this. Go ahead and finish all of this, because once we are done with this, obviously the appropriate people will do this work, playing different roles within the workflow. However, from a demo perspective, I'm going to complete it as an admin here. Okay. So now the system is going to go ahead and create the customer actually in SAP directly, because ZFlow is connected to a number of external systems, and we use the APIs to go ahead and create the appropriate data, or actually even in many cases even get appropriate data from external systems. With this, I'll hand it over. I'll complete this step, and then Hiren will show both the customer data as well as some of the additional information within SAP. Okay, Hiren. So we'll go ahead and complete this. Creates the customer master, and Hiren, if you can bring the customer data up. Hello? All right, while Hiren is moving, bringing that information, we also wanted to showcase some additional fulfillment type oriented processes. So we have finished we've onboarded the new customer. Now the quote is accepted. We have to fulfill the demand, right? So what I've here created is actually go back to our sales quote. Okay, so we are here, and there are a number of things that need to be done so that you can actually go ahead and build a customer from a quote to cash workflow, right? So if you look at it, now we started with the quote, internal review. We actually got some information from the supplier, just to show you that that date actually made it through. It took a little bit longer. Okay, and once the quote is accepted, we actually went ahead and created a sales order in SAP. This can be a very simple step, or depending upon how you structure, because we are integrated with SAP in this environment, you can have one more additional steps to review before the sales orders are actually created in SAP. Once the sales orders are created, now we can actually think in terms of assembly, asset, all of the different steps before the customer signs off. So this is where, if you look at it, this whole cycle is when your quote to cash cycle really involves, right? From this customer example perspective, because it's only when the customer is signing off here that you actually can start the recurring billing, right? A lot of services are being set up like that. And depending upon, there are many times when hardware is provisioned, you can actually bill immediately upon delivery or goods receipt. But depending upon the type of service and product, your actual billing may happen at any time, right? Way after. So it's in your best interest to make sure that this whole process runs as smoothly as possible. So what we have done here is actually created. So here is we have done with the supply chain inquiry. We have seen that process where before we got the quote approved, we went into the supply chain. We also issued a sales order. This is a very one-step process, not a big deal. Creates a sales order in SAP and you get that. However, immediately after the sales order, we've also started a fulfillment process. And the fulfillment process actually involves a number of steps. You can have all the people, different roles that are involved, and assign these steps to them, to those workflow participants, right? So here at this point, the assembly is done, the asset and install base setup is finished, software as a service is provisioned, billing and renewal setup is also done. However, now we are just waiting for consulting engagement for onboarding service, right? If there is a 2 to 3 day thing, this team now can step in. The role will be given to either a software analyst, so they can do it and finish this work, and then the customer signs off, and then we are ready to bill, right? So you can orchestrate these intricate processes from beginning to end, and nothing gets missed while you're doing it. And your goal as a sales operations or quote to cash type of scenarios is to make sure all of this process flows smoothly, and the time that is done here is getting compressed and faster and faster, happening and faster and faster. So you also get a full picture of the whole orchestration as well as the different where things are in terms of the overall process is concerned. Okay.
Chris, I can show it in SAP if you would like my mouse was frozen earlier.
Oh, okay. No problem. So I think we'll continue on. So yeah, if you have a quick chance, to show the sales orders and the customer records, that would be good.
Good. Can you stop? Yeah.
Yes.
So as Chris was sharing, we started off with being in the CRM system as per this graph, and he has taken us through all of the collaborative processes that ZFlow enabled. And I started off, I showed you how we were in Salesforce, and I landed in ZFlow. Chris has taken you through all of the collaborative aspects. What I'm going to show you now is how once the customer is onboarded, once the customer is onboarded in via ZFlow in SAP, I'm going to show you in SAP the customer created, and I'm also going to show you the sales order that is created in SAP. So let me flip to my SAP screen. So here I am in SAP, and this is a customer that is created through ZFlow with all of the information that we capture, which is over and above the information that was provided by Salesforce. And through the collaborative aspect, this record is now created in Salesforce, in SAP. And once this SAP record is created, as part of the subsequent process that Chris showed, we also are able to create the sales order in SAP. So this is a sales order that was created for this customer as a result of this process. I also want to point out to you that while the sales order looks familiar because it is to a correct customer with the correct dates, and this is the piece that we sold, the Cisco rack server and the annual maintenance service, but we also see a few additional items. That's because from a fulfillment standpoint, from an SAP standpoint, when we fulfill this order, you need a lot more pieces. And this also demonstrates how ZFlow is able to ensure that the information that comes over from Salesforce, which is from a selling standpoint, can then be translated into what SAP needs from a fulfillment standpoint. So in short, this is the sales order, and this is how the end-to-end flow is being completed. There's no middleware necessary at all. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Ren. So when we are talking in terms of integration to multiple systems, one of the things when you're doing workflows is that you need to make interoperability with different systems pretty smooth and seamless. And what we have done is, I think, somewhat very unique is you've seen a lot of people coming in and out of these workflows, right? Because we've fundamentally ZFlow is designed as a cross-functional workflow system, and because we work so much with supply chain and product development and sales ops, usually people are involved in all of this. However, at many times you do also need to interoperate with different systems, and it needs to happen naturally, right? Not as some special activity, bring in the IT teams and bring in a middleware system and spend several months stitching it all together. We did not think it was practical to do it that way, so we've established interoperability as part of workflows in a very seamless fashion. So here you're actually seeing a number of different systems that are connected to ZFlow, from Salesforce to SAP systems. There are a couple of SAP systems. There is a PLM system. There's an external service for banking information checks. So a lot of these systems are connected to this workflow engine. And depending upon the need for different workflow steps, we actually call different, right? Here, for example, in the couple of SAP where we are checking for vendors and creating a sales order and create material, so on. In Salesforce, we needed some information for accounts, customer, quote line items, etc. So you take advantage, use these APIs where needed in your workflows. So for example, here in your new customer workflow, we just use that API, create a customer master in SAP. That is nothing but calling customer, create customer, and it uses the information within that workflow, the information that we got from Salesforce, and enriched with additional business information needed for SAP to create that SAP. So it happens naturally as part of workflows. This has really helped us accelerate the design of workflow and making it work with other systems, really, really fast. Often the workflow design is done by the business analysts, is very accessible. So you are designing, how it should be done, and based upon how you do your business, not something that, predetermined. It's fairly flexible. The roles, the workflow, teams that participate in these are done very, very easily as part of workflow design. Another thing that is very unique to ZFlow is that we do handle enormous amount of master data. As a matter of fact, we probably have one of the richest master data. Many of our customers just use it for master data workflows as well. So a good example here is, we were working with that UCS system, right? It's a product that we actually use, and it is provided by Jabil, right? So this type of information is pretty easy to set up in Jabil. Most of the time, this is being used as a master data synchronization between many, many systems like design systems, supply chain, CRM, ERP, and we are connected to them, as well as, you can say, synchronizing between all of these different systems. Another thing that you will see here is, since we treat suppliers and customers as equal or slightly less as just regular participants, right? Here we have Jabil. We actually have 2 users of Jabil that they can participate in any workflows, right? Because they're a strategic contract manufacturer of ours, and they can be taking part in many supply chain workflows, not only just sales operations, but also in production and service, right? New product development, etc. And then you can see the different workflows in which they are currently participating, right? So you can really get them onboarded and making part of workflows very simple. You don't have to you know consider it as like your WhatsApp, right? You're bringing suppliers and customers onboarded into WhatsApp. Same thing here. If I look at customers, you will find, let me show that. So a couple of Kaiser Permanente people are part of the system, so they can, many times you want customers to participate in workflows, either to review something or to approve, sign off on certain things. So they can also participate in these workflows. So this whole concept of a workflow engine that is able to interoperate, support cross-functional teams, and do handoffs is somewhat very unique. And what our customers are finding is, very effective in how things get done. Okay, and so we wanted to give a break here and see if there are any questions. Another thing, while we are doing, we do generate quite a bit of insights about how the workflows are running in terms of the overall cycle times, which activities are taking, how much longer. You can also look at the timelines of individual workflows themselves. Many times, if you go to the graph here, timeline, you will see how things are happening and the amount of time between activities things are taking, right? So very extensive from a visibility, both from a overall workflow perspective or as well as individual specific workflows, right? So you can streamline, as you gain more and more experience. We also provide some intelligence into what is happening with respect to the workflow itself. So for example, here, sales inquiries, if you look at it, the types of sales inquiries that are coming are the number of types, the sales groups that are fulfilling that inquiries or attending to those inquiries. All of these are generated automatically, so people can get some, very quick insight into the different workflows and their details. Okay. One of the things that we also wanted to highlight is many of our customers take advantage of our test drive or free proof of concept. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that ZFlow is right for you, right? And you don't want to spend a lot of time and money on something that may or may not do the job well. We want to always make sure that our customers, what we do is right for them, works well for them, and they're pretty confident that it will continue to improve the workflows and the different scenarios. So both in the case of test drive, you will get your own ZFlow, filled with all of these different types of workflows. You can pick and choose. We have several for sales operations, several for supplier development, And we also do a lot of work in product engineering and component engineering. These are our three big areas because we deal with supply chain. Supply chains are always involved in these cross-functional workflows. So you'll get all of these that you can try using a test drive. The other thing that a lot of our customers also did actually, to tell you the truth, and we have several proof of concepts that are currently running, is you have some unique situation, mission critical and business critical, but you are finding it very, very painful to address. And if done well, there is a big win internally for the company, and perhaps even from a supply chain perspective. For that, you need to design some of these workflows and the orchestration, integration. You can do that using this free proof of concept. In the free proof of concept environment, we will engage with you. Our team will actually help you design the workflow that you have in mind. Perhaps we can do it within your internally or even connect to your systems, but otherwise we will simulate the entire scenario for you within our environment, including whatever external systems that you have to actually connect, whether it's SAP, CRM, Dynamics, Salesforce, or any other systems, right? So we will design that intricate, the challenging situation that you have with ZFlow and show it to you. And then you can decide if it makes sense or not. Often these POCs, even fairly intricate ones, we get done in about 2 to 3 weeks. It's that fast. ZFlow, if there's one thing that you should leave with, is everything in ZFlow is fast and effective, and you have more or less complete, I would say, hands-on capability to design things that you want. Okay, so if you would like to take advantage of the test drive or interested in a POC, free POC, we'll be more than happy to support. Okay, if there are no more questions, we will be sending the recording as well as the deck, so you can review it. Our contact information will be in the deck. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. And if you want to test drive or conduct a POC, definitely reach out to us and we will jump on it and support it as soon as possible. Okay, thank you for your time. Have a great day.